أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وفرج النبي يا كريم. Apologies for the delay. There was an issue with connecting the camera and alhamdulillah it's been fixed. Having said that, we talked about in our last session the idea of the undervalued trap. So really, what ends up happening is that both parties, the husband and the wife, start to feel undervalued. At some point, it starts to feel like I'm the only one putting up and keeping this particular relationship going. You see, I want to give a very important kind of analogy here and expectation here. We have two types of needs. They have a primary need innately linked to the nafs, which finds himself as a lady in this world, and we have a primary need innately linked to the nafs, which basically finds itself as a man in this particular world. Both of these needs are person specific, and guess what? Our nafs is designed to pursue its needs. Okay, what that means is Allah Subhanahu wa Taala basically projects forth and compels a nafs to go after their needs, their specific needs. Okay, so in this particular analogy, consider this. There's two types of this water. There's two types of thirsts, right? Red water and blue water, if you will, and thirst one and thirst red and thirst blue, if you will. Okay, one gender has their own particular thirst, and they go after that particular water and strive for that, and the other goes for that. In common lingo, it's called emotional intimacy and physical intimacy. In the marriage, you'll recognize that both genders will strive. Both will strive and both are going to strive after their needs. That's true as well. Uh, but that need ends up being something that's a person specific thing. Generally speaking, the predominant need for the male is the physical intimacy, and the predominant need for the female is the emotional intimacy. It's not to say the other person doesn't need the other. That's not what we're talking about at all. We're talking about the high priority item. You see that? The nafs is designed in a particular way, which kind of uh, uh, um, goes after its own type of need. Having said that, you have to understand that shaitan comes and sometimes to the lady, for example, will say, look, the need that a relationship's supposed to fulfill is called emotional intimacy. It's primary need. And then it'll say, let's make a rubric and evaluate our spouse based on how much effort they're putting there. And we'll find more often than not, because their primary need is not that, they'll typically not be doing as well as we are. And then Shaitan has a data point saying, look. See there? You're the only one trying here, really. Their attempts are peanuts. Okay? So, realistically speaking, what Shaitan ends up doing is he ends up swindling us. He goes to the guy too. Says, look, what's the primary need that a marriage brings to you? Is physical intimacy. So look, you're doing everything in your power to ensure that particular coupling occurs, but look, she just doesn't like it. She doesn't want you. She just doesn't like the marriage. A rejection of that type of need gets translated as a rejection of you as a partner. You see that? That creates some pretty deep attachment wounds. Okay. So what ends up happening is Shaitan starts to muddy the waters, and then you don't recognize that in fact each nafs is after their need. Okay, and if you want to objectively evaluate whether a person is pursuing their need or not, you have to objectively evaluate what they're pursuing. Right? The thirsty pursue water, and the hungry pursue food. You see that? If I was to look at the pursuit of the thirsty and make the evaluation criteria food, very quickly I can tell them they're not really thirsty, they're not really motivated, they're not really, they're lazy. No, because they don't want food, they want water. If I want to truly evaluate their motivation, their value, how much they value that particular relationship, I have to see how much they pursue that aspect of the relationship that gives them their need. You see that? The relationship in of itself is like a tree, right? Some individuals are out for the fruits because they can consume the fruits. Other individuals who can't consume those fruits, they don't have the teeth for them, they're after the shade. Each person values a tree immensely for the need that it provides for them. Okay? To expect that the need that the other person feels has to be the equivalent and exact as my need is to expect their nafs to take on tendencies and traits of my nafs. Not possible. Allah made the marriage between a man and a woman, not between two men and two women. Okay, but it's not allowed, it's not okay because of an arbitrary nature. No, it's not allowed, it's not okay because biologically speaking, the existence and survival of humanity itself depends on this particular thing. If it was the case that humanity is to exist, then it is to exist in this particular way. And if something scarce, if something brings scarcity or threat to the survival of humanity, right, that methodology must be questioned. If it's not mutable and not applicable in every capacity and so on and so forth, then perhaps it's a risk that might be a danger to humanity itself. I won't open that further in this particular clip. Shaitan comes and he swindles those both individuals into focusing on their primary need from that relationship. Okay? And says, look, if you have this particular need, go after this. And that person says, look, if you have that particular need, go after that particular need of yours. Shaitan quite actively makes us occupied in the pursuit of our needs and makes our vision such that we want to see our partner also pursuing our type of need, which is unnatural. Partner pursues their particular type of need from the very same relationship. Okay. To give an analogy, even at the wedding function itself, the girl wants to dress up like the girl and the guy wants to dress up like the guy. They don't do role reversals, right? The reality of the situation is, even with that wedding function in of itself, both parties, their attachment and their attention and what they're looking for from that is their person specific. It's very important to note our nafs can't help but pursue its needs. Why? Because then its needs is the only thing that it can identify. Okay. If it identifies its needs, it chases after it. If it can't identify its needs, then it can't chase after it. Quite simply that, nothing more. So, having said this particular thing so far, this point builds on to a second point. What happens when shaitan now swindles one partner or the other to feel like they're the only one trying to achieve that particular need? Well, it's a partial truth because you're right. Predominantly speaking, the way you're motivated after this particular need in that coupling, you're the only one because that's your primary need. But if you were to flip the equation and just look for the framework on the other lens, predominantly speaking, the one who's trying to formulate that other type of need is your partner. Why? Because that's their predominant need. Shaitan gets you bogged down in a partial reality and make you kind of claim things about the overall reality. You see that? This marriage is dysfunctional. No, it's not. It's actually very functional. You're seeking your need and they're seeking their need, right? And you're amicably trying to achieve that particular balance where both of your needs are getting met. This is essential to understand. A system that doesn't allow for that is a system that's saying basically that two needs shouldn't be met. As a person who denies these two needs, basically, and their specificity to each gender is simply denying their understanding of what the gender is. Just because you put your head in the sand, oh ostrich, doesn't make that particular reality disappear. Okay. So when shaitan comes and he swindles both parties, he makes them occupied in their own pursuits and lack thereof regarding their partner, right? All of a sudden, he finds himself as a victor. Because the more they now strive, the more they recognize that they're the only ones striving in that capacity, predominantly speaking, and the more suffocated they feel. Because they feel they're the only one trying. You see that? In the partial reality, you're right. You're the only one trying in this department. That's true because the other department head is trying in their department. This company called marriage works on both departments. It can't operate only on one. It is supposed to be providing the needs of both departments. It is extremely, extremely important. Okay. So Shaitan comes and he tries to swindle, and he tries to misappropriate and disengage each person from that particular relationship after they start to get riled up and tired. Once he does that, you're in trouble. That marriage unit can't sustain itself. It starts to go down and go down and go down. Because the more each person pursues their particular type of need, the more burnt out they become. The board starts to become burnt out pursuers. Okay? And they both start to withdraw then, right, from the other person in terms of expecting their need to be met. And in that particular way, they both also become withdrawers, but in their own capacities. The pursuer and withdrawer, in a wholesome sense, looks like this, where both pursue and both withdraw. It's just the needs that they're pursuing are different, and hence the withdrawal from the needs also is different. This is extremely important to understand. This is very different from what Western psychology preaches in terms of the pursuer and withdrawal cycle. In Islamic tarbiyah, the relationships are directionally specific, and each person is pursuing their need from their specific direction of the relationship. And their pursuit then and their expectation then, right, should be such that they recognize that the other person will be then pursuing their specific type of need. And now, as the managers of that relationship, not the owners, it becomes incumbent upon each person to recognize the whole framework first, to set up appropriate expectations. I'm not claiming that my partner is not trying. I am claiming that my partner is not trying as hard as I am in this field. Why? Because it's not their primary need. No duh. Okay? Just like vice versa. My partner is not trying in this particular direction because it's not their primary need. No doubt. Okay? Having that realization brings a little bit of calmness to the otherwise chaotic emotion. Okay? Of abandonment by the other partner and desperation of fulfilling our needs solo. Okay? When that chaos comes down a bit, the managers are enabling each other to appropriately assist the other in their need too. Yes, I don't feel that need the same way that you do, but I recognize that you're thirsty and you need water. So I try to give you water now. Even though I'm hungry, I'm not thirsty. Vice versa. You recognize that I'm actually hungry and you provide me food, even though you're actually thirsty. You see that? But at the brink moment of each person just occupied with their own need, the thirsty with thirst and the hungry with their hunger, right? Then all of a sudden, what they're going to be doing, they're going to predominantly focus on that, and they're going to be getting angry at the other person. Why are you bringing water to the table when there should be food? And the person goes, why are you bringing food to the table? We're all thirsty. We need water. And they get into a quarrel because they haven't identified their primary need. They get into a quarrel because they had their pursuit and expectations with each other with regards to that particular identification and becomes inappropriate. Okay. When you appropriately understand the framework, it allows you to calm down and then take a sip of water and then very quickly start to offer food to the other person too. In the airplanes, they tell you put the mask on yourself first and then put the mask on the person beside you for a reason because it's logically sound. If your primary need is not met, your capacity of providing that particular assistance to the other person will be filled with sorrow and bitterness. Instead of helping, you'll be hurting. Right? What hurting who? The relationship. While you're providing that particular person's need, while having zero of it met for yourself, right? At your base, rear core level, you're going to be hurting yourself, and that's not good. That's not good at all. Okay? So you are pursuing your particular need, and you're also pursuing it in an appropriate way. You're fostering a willful and humble accompanying from your partner. And if you notice, your fitra is like that too. Neither the individual who wants emotional intimacy nor the individual who wants physical intimacy wants it without these two traits of willingness and humbleness. put arrogance and put kind of pressure or forcefulness there, and that particular intimacy loses all tastes, no matter which type it is. Okay. The reality of the situation is that each individual is after basically ta'ah, willing and humble kind of assistance from the other individual in overcoming and fulfilling their particular type of need. That's only possible if we're cognizant of what our primary need is. We appropriately plan for that and assist the partner such that they're able to then come into that particular picture and provide that. And as soon as that particular initial phase is finished, we're making sure that we're also providing their particular need to them. This tango of needs needs to be understood properly. Because if it's not, this is exactly where things go awry. You see, every relationship is heralded by and it has become symbolic for, right, a particular need of mankind being met. For example, the mother relationship is symbolic for love, motherly love, sustenance, caring, rububiyyah, if you will. The fatherly relationships becomes symbolic for protection, safety, right? Aman and qudra, for example, right? The husband-wife relationship is a relationship of intimacy. Very different thing. So, hence the primary need then also ends up becoming one that's tied to intimacy. And the two types of nufus that are actually interacting with one another, one uh, connected to a male appearance in the dunya, and the other connected to a female appearance in the dunya, then has appropriate needs based on that particular connection. This framework is important to understand, and we'll stop here today, inshallah, and continue. In this particular video, the framework regarding couplings in Islam and cognitive in a cognitive capacity in humans really was mentioned, right? Humans, to one of the innate needs of humans is survival, just like the need of every other creature. Humans have that particular need, and if human survival is innately a need, then the pursuit of human survival, basically overcoming that particular need, right, to survive, requires then a coupling of two distinct types of individuals. And hence, the coupling talked about today was one of a man and a woman. Why? Because you can't get another human from just a man and a man. You can't get another human from just a lady and a lady. In actuality, in all logic, right, and every human in the world understands this particular point that to get a offspring, you need a man and a woman, biologically speaking, right? And hence, the coupling that was talked about was biological in nature, which is also something that Islam ascribes to and many other faiths prescribe to as well, including Christianity and Judaism. In this particular way, basically, we talked about the coupling of a man and a woman, and the pursuit and the withdrawal cycle, and how shaitan swindles. See you guys next week. Yamanullah.